Hey guys, and welcome back to This Week on the Challenge with me, Adrian. Today we're going to be recapping episode 11 of Total Madness, and we first have to start off by talking about what happened this week because that directly tied into what happened in the episode. Earlier this week, Dee was fired by MTV and from participating in any future seasons of the challenge for some statements she made on the Black Lives Matter movement. It started when she posted that black square in support of Black Lives Matter, but then Dee didn't really proceed to say anything much else about it. And a day after, she was posting pictures about her life again, thirst traps, a bunch of these things. And so her followers started, commenting, asking her why she wasn't saying anything else about the Black Lives Matter movement. And Dee responded by making a few very ignorant and also dismissive comments towards Black Lives Matter. And after making these comments, MTV came out and said that Dee was fired and that she was no longer welcome on any future seasons of the challenge. Dee has since checked into a mental health facility with the support of Wes. A bunch of the challengers were living together. So after making these comments and Wes, kind of felt like her mental health was at stake, he helped her check into a mental health facility. So that's where Dee's at right now. She has since apologized for making those statements, and she did say that she would love to be on the show again, but that she was sorry for making those comments. So I had to start with that update because that directly affected the way that this week's episode was edited, because it was so choppy. The flow of the episode just wasn't there. It didn't really tell a story, and it was just really weird. And you could tell that it was because they clearly wanted to cut Dee out of the episode as much as they could. So let's talk about what happened. So I'm gonna go over what happened on the episode, and it's gonna be kind of choppy and lacking, but I'll help fill you guys in on what actually happened based on what I saw on Reddit. And so the episode starts off, Maddie is talking about wanting to throw herself into the elimination to get her red skull, and Nani is expressing that she also wants to go in. Right after that, we cut to the actual challenge, which is called Flag Down, and it's an individual challenge where they're strapped onto sides of a vehicle, basically face down like Mission Impossible style, and they're driven through these fields where they have to grab as many white flags and red flags as possible. Red flag is worth 1 point, white flag is worth 10. But in the way, there's colored smoke blowing up, and also boxes that are blocking their way, making it difficult for them to get the flags. And so they're basically trying to rack up as many points as possible. The other difficult thing is that there's 2 people on each side, so you're really competing with the person next to you. So in the first round, it's Kyle and Rogan on one side, Maddie and Anissa on the other. And as they start going, you see Rogan pick up a bunch of flags and start to put them into Kyle's bag because he's trying to help Kyle win. Because Rogan doesn't need to win, he doesn't need to win anymore because he has his red skull, but what he wants to do is try to stay out of the elimination. So he's trying to help Kyle win so that when Kyle wins, he'll pick Rogan to be in the tribunal with him. I thought it was a pretty good strategy, to be honest. In the second group, we saw Melissa, Casey, Josh, and Bananas, and all I said is Melissa is so cute in these. Her and Casey were having so much fun, flying through the field in this one. And I just saw Melissa grab a ton of flags, so I thought that was really good. Then we have Jenny, Nani, Fessy, and Nelson. And again, Jenny's using the same strategy as the other team where she's picking up all the flags and putting it in Nani's bag, trying to help her win. And in the last round is Corey, Swaggy, Bailey, and Dee that went. And when they went, I noted down that, it's actually better for you to be paired with someone who already has a red skull, because then they would help get the flags for you, because in this case Swaggy and Corey both don't have a red skull, so they're really competing to win. But in the cases before, like Jenny and Nani, Kyle and Rogan, the other person was helping them win. So I actually thought it was a disadvantage for Corey and Swaggy to be paired together. But once everyone finishes, TJ actually disqualifies anybody that ended up cheating in this challenge. So right off the bat, Jenny, Nani, Kyle, Rogan. And when TJ said that, I was like, oh God, because I feel like if I were on the challenge and I saw other people doing that to stack the win, I would probably do the same thing. They didn't really lay out the rules very clearly in the beginning. So I kind of thought that was production's fault a little bit, but I was happy that TJ disqualified them because cheating is not the way to win. In the end, it ended up being Josh who got into the tribunal because he got the most flags, and also Melissa, who who both end up picking Johnny Bananas to make up the third person in the tribunal. Another thing I noted here was just like dirty looks that Bailey was giving, which didn't really make sense in the context of the episode, but like I said, so what I saw on Reddit, and you can actually search because they actually released all of the unreleased footage from this episode, but Bailey was really pissed off because she was next to Dee, who was really like just trying to throw Bailey off and push all the boxes in her way and really try to sabotage her. So Bailey was really pissed because here she is really trying to win the challenge so that she can get her red skull to potentially win $1 million, but she's being sabotaged by Dee, who already has a red skull and doesn't really give a crap. Like, Dee's just laughing maniacally the entire time, and she doesn't really care about sabotaging Bailey. So Bailey, you know, how pissed off she was explained because of what happened on the challenge. So that only made sense to me once I watched that footage from Reddit, but it didn't make sense on the episode because they had cut so much of Dee out on the episode. Once we get back into the house, Maddie explains to everyone that she wants to go into the elimination to get a red skull, and Melissa is not happy because as a person in the tribunal, she wants to kind of dictate who she wants to go against in the elimination, and she doesn't think that she's going to be able to win against Maddie, and so she's understandably unhappy with Maddie wanting to go into the elimination. But at nominations, Maddie puts her hand up and volunteers herself into the elimination. Nobody disagrees, not even Nani, who was talking about wanting to go in, and just like that, Maddie is the nominee for the elimination. And then after that, we go back to the bar scene, back to the bar where Josh and Swaggy almost fought last time, but nothing quite as dramatic happened this week. Mostly we just got talk of Melissa maybe potentially wanting to put Bailey versus Maddie in, and also Nani just complaining about the fact that all her friends have a red skull and that she doesn't. That's it. After that, we get the interrogation, and Melissa, Johnny, and Josh decide to interrogate Nani and Bailey because they don't have their red skulls yet, and they have expressed wanting to go into the elimination, but they have to pick a third person, and the rest of the women in the house all have their red skulls, so they kind of have to burn, you know, one of their interrogations on one of these women. And much to the dismay of Melissa, Johnny and Josh convince her that they're going to interrogate Dee, but promise her that they're not going to choose her to go into the elimination. Melissa and Dee are really good friends throughout the show, so she really didn't want to do that, but because she trusted them, she agreed to interrogate Dee. Nani comes in. Wes advises her not to go in, even though Nani wants to go get her red skull, because he says, you know, you have to consider your odds against the girl that's in the elimination already. Do you think you're going to be able to beat Maddie? Which is a good question. I mean, the same thing kind of happened with him and Wes last week, with Wes going home, but Nani does kind of take that into consideration. And then Bailey comes in. She has a great attitude. She says she's not going to hold a grudge if they put her in, but that's because she wants to go get her red skull. So that is why she said that. But Bailey is very ready to go into the elimination to win. And then lastly, we get Dee, who comes in. Again, so choppy. We don't get any like speaking parts from her, no explanation. She's just pissed to have been brought into the interrogation room. She does direct her anger at Josh, which Josh gets quite like emotional about it, but we don't, like, you really don't understand anything from watching the episode of why she's so pissed off. But again, go watch that clip on Reddit, but it's explained that because Dee didn't interrogate Josh last week and she gave him a free pass, she's pissed that this week Josh decided to bring her into the room to interrogate her. So she's fuming because she's really mad at that. And so that is the source of Dee's madness and why Josh got so emotional after that. I mean, there is no real explanation for why Josh is so worked up over something like this, because this happens all the time in challenges, and even in the Big Brother house. Sometimes you have to nominate someone who saved you last week. Like, it's just how the game is, but Josh is very reactive to this. Then we finally get to the elimination, and TJ asks Melissa from the tribunal if she wants to go in against Maddie. Melissa declines, so they have to pick one of the three that they've interrogated. Melissa votes for Bailey to go in, and then Johnny Bananas, he makes his whole little speech and says, there's only one person in the house who's going to dictate how I vote. Rogan, can I vote for Dee? Oh my, I was like, because that just came out of nowhere. I mean, Throughout the entire episode, there was no mention of them wanting to throw Dee in. I mean, we did get like a little bit of commentary from Jenny, still talking about the beef that they had from previous weeks where Dee was contemplating wanting to put Jenny in, but really nothing that built up to this point. And so for Johnny to look at Rogan and ask him whether he wanted to throw Dee in was so shocking. And Rogan looks right at Dee, who's right next to him, and then says, yeah, throw her in. Oh my God. That was so good, and everybody in the house was so ecstatic. Look at Kyle's face here. He's like shocked, and everyone is just going crazy because I think this was such a blind side, number one. I don't think Dee knew at all, and I don't think anyone in the house really knew that this was going to happen. And number two, Dee's number one is Rogan, and Rogan is right next to her throwing her in. So I think that is the most shocking to everybody, honestly. So TJ goes to Josh and asks him who he wants to throw in, and Josh also picks Dee. So just like that, Dee is going into the elimination against Maddie. It didn't make sense at all why they would throw Dee in watching the episode because of how much they edited her out of it. But if you watch the clips on Reddit, which I'll try to put in the box below, yeah, it's very clear that they had a clear plan of wanting to put her in. So it was really Johnny Bananas, Josh, and Jenny working together to put Dee in. Jenny was really unhappy about the fact that Dee was so willing to throw her in last week, and so Jenny kind of expressed how unhappy she was about the situation with Johnny Bananas, and Johnny has not liked the way that Dee has acted this entire season, you know, coming in fresh off a win last season and really thinking that she's all that. And I think that has just really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way in the house. And then Josh obviously is really pissed off from the fact that Dee is pissed off at him for putting her in the interrogation. And so all of that built up to a lot of people disliking Dee's attitude throughout the season, but also this week, and them ultimately blindsiding her. So all of that made sense once you watch all those clips down here. The one thing though I will say is that it's really odd that Rogan is going against Dee, because Dee would throw herself in front of Rogan to save him from any sort of danger. And so he is really protected by having Dee around, but I guess he's just so annoyed of having her in the house, which is funny that he's even willing to get rid of her in order to play this game without her. And so him deciding to vote Dee in came as a shock to me. But it also does show how disloyal he is as a player. But it did make for a very, very interesting twist. So the elimination game is called Tunnel Vision, and basically Maddie and Dee are stuck in this box. They're enclosed, filled with a ton of sand, and they basically have to, you know, dig through all the sand and get through to the other side, run out of the box, and ring the bell. It looks particularly challenging though, because there's not a lot of space in the box at all. The way it looked, like it was totally sealed. If you're claustrophobic, this is not the elimination for you. The boxes do start to fog up because there's so little air in there and it's such a tight enclosed space. But Dee kind of has an easier time wiggling through the sand just because she is smaller in size compared to Maddie. And so after digging through, Dee does ultimately get the win, and she runs out of the box and rings that bell, and you know just how scared all those people in the house are of her for voting her in, because now she has come back to the house. She's gonna hate Rogan more than ever. I mean, she better. Dee better not run back to Rogan after this. I mean, he's already proven last season that he was willing to throw her in as quickly as possible. And so for him to do this a second season in a row, Dee would be crazy to go back to Rogan at this point. I really hope she doesn't, but it'll be interesting to see what sort of trouble she raises next week. But in saying that, I feel like MTV, for them to have edited her out in so many scenes of this episode, they're probably going to do the same thing in future episodes. And so I do wonder how they're going to tell the story, because I'm sure a lot of drama came out of Dee going back into the house and raising hell against the rest of the competitors, but I don't really know how they're going to show it in future episodes, if they're going to cut her out. I would kind of have preferred them to post a statement in the beginning of the episode, make it clear that they don't stand with Dee and her comments that she made about Black Lives Matter, instead of cutting her out from the episode completely, just for the sake of wanting to know what happened in the challenge. But obviously MTV's taking a very firm approach and just not wanting to showcase Dee at all on their show. Yeah, it'll be very interesting to watch how this affects the editing for the rest of the season. If you're interested, watch that clip on Reddit of all the unaired footage of this episode. I think the episode will make so much more sense once you watch this because there's so much more context in it. Let me know also what you thought about what happened with Dee this week. MTV really reprimanded her in a very big way by firing her for her insensitive, ignorant, and tone-deaf comments that she's made during this time, which is not right. Instead of making those comments to her followers, Dee should have taken the time to do a little bit of research into what was happening with Black Lives Matter across the country, because she definitely would not have made those comments, I feel like, if she were aware of what was happening. Like, I find it even difficult for her to not know what was going on. But yeah, anyways, let me know what you thought about the episode so far, what you think they're going to air in the future, whether we're going to get to see everything or just cut out of everything. But yeah, let me know about everything. I'm really liking talking to you guys in the comments after we watch, and I can't wait to watch next week with you guys. See you.